In the quaint town of Willowbrook, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there stood an old Victorian house with a history shrouded in mystery. The house, known locally as the Hawthorne Manor, had been abandoned for decades, its once grand facade now weathered and worn, its windows boarded up like the eyes of a forgotten soul. But within its walls lay secrets that few dared to uncover. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled in the distance, a young couple named Emily and David stumbled upon the Hawthorne Manor while exploring the outskirts of town. Intrigued by the overgrown garden and the air of neglect that surrounded the house, they decided to venture inside, their curiosity outweighing their fear. Upon entering the foyer, Emily and David were greeted by the musty scent of decay and the faint echo of their footsteps on the creaky floorboards. Dust motes danced in the dim light that filtered through the boarded-up windows, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As they explored the ground floor, Emily's gaze was drawn to a small door tucked away beneath the staircase. Pushing it open, she discovered a hidden staircase leading down into the darkness below. Ignoring David's protests, she descended into the depths, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. At the bottom of the stairs, Emily found herself in a dusty basement filled with cobweb-covered furniture and boxes of forgotten belongings. But it was the sight of a miniature replica of the Hawthorne Manor, complete with tiny furniture and intricately painted walls, that captured her attention. "It's a dollhouse!" Emily exclaimed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But look, it's an exact replica of this house." David joined her side, his eyes widening in astonishment as he examined the tiny details of the dollhouse. Each room was meticulously crafted, from the ornate wallpaper to the miniature curtains that hung by the windows. "It's incredible," David murmured, his fingers hovering over the tiny front door. "But why would someone go to such lengths to recreate this house?" Before Emily could respond, a strange sensation washed over her, as if the air itself had grown heavy with anticipation. A soft whisper echoed through the basement, barely audible yet undeniably present. "Help me!" Startled, Emily looked around, searching for the source of the voice. But the basement was empty save for her and David and the dollhouse that sat on the dusty floor. "Tss! Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. David nodded, his expression tense. "I think it came from the dollhouse." With trembling hands, Emily reached out and opened the tiny front door of the dollhouse. Inside, she saw a miniature figure huddled in the corner of the living room, its tiny hands pressed against its ears, as if trying to block out the world. "It's a doll," David said, his voice tinged with relief. "Just a doll." But as Emily studied the figure closer, she realized that it wasn't a doll at all. It was a tiny replica of herself, dressed in the same clothes she was wearing, with the same freckles sprinkled across its porcelain face. "Emily, this is too weird," David said, his voice rising with panic. "We need to get out of here!" But before they could move, a low rumble filled the basement, and the walls began to shake with increasing intensity. Dust rained down from the ceiling as cracks formed in the ancient plaster, and Emily and David were thrown to the ground as the floor buckled beneath them. When the shaking finally stopped, Emily and David found themselves lying amidst the ruins of the basement, the dollhouse shattered into 1,000 pieces around them. But as they struggled to their feet and made their way back up the stairs, they realized that something had changed. The Hawthorne Manor was no longer abandoned. Its once weathered facade had been restored to its former glory, its windows gleaming in the sunlight that streamed through the newly uncovered glass. And as Emily and David stepped out onto the front porch, they saw the townsfolk gathered in the street, their faces filled with wonder and awe. "What happened?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. But no one could answer her question, for in the blink of an eye, the Hawthorne Manor had been transformed from a forgotten relic into the jewel of Willowbrook, its secrets buried beneath layers of history and legend. And as Emily and David looked out at the town that had once shunned the old house, they realized that some mysteries were best left unsolved. For in the heart of the Hawthorne Manor, a darkness lingered, waiting to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting world once more.